Welcome to Storm Tracker, your eye on the storm of your Carolina Hurricanes, and your home for the best insight and analysis to keep you totally informed on what's happening with the Canes. Whether it's the latest news on the ice or off the ice, we've got you covered. Now let's begin. Here's your host, Tom Ray.
Well, the preseason is well underway for the Carolina Hurricanes, and as expected, the Canes are keeping things interesting. At the Prospect Showcase, we saw some great hockey, with stellar performances from some Canes kids, and work in progress with some of the other young Hurricanes. Now we're well into training camp, and returning NHL players, as well as AHL regulars, young prospects, and PTO signings, have been working hard. What have the preseason games been like so far? Have there been any major surprises, disappointments? And what new storylines have we observed as training camp has progressed? Joining Erin, Katie, and I to talk about this and more, I'm delighted to welcome in Hurricanes podcaster and blogger, Matt Somma. Howdy, y'all.
Hi there.
Hello.
Hey, Tom. How's it going?
Okay, so Prospect Showcase done. Moving into the Canes camp, of course, a number of exhibition games under their belt, and lots to talk about. Let's start with the Prospect Showcase. Now, Matt, you were there. You watched them up close and personal. What were some of your thoughts from the Prospect Showcase?
It was frustrating, I think, for the team. You know, they would have liked to have won all three games, or at least even one, I think towards the end. But the way these games are is it's a benchmark, right? It's a chance for you to see, okay, this is where they were at Dev Camp in July. Here's where they are in September after 2 months of training with feedback from the NHL coaching staff, right? So, who took their lessons to heart, who needs a little bit more to go, we've seen players in the past kind of take the performances from this tournament and run with it. Like I remember 4 years ago, back when the tournament was at Tampa, Seth Jarvis was unreal. And that was before he was guaranteed to make the roster. So, obviously this year we didn't have a Seth Jarvis, but a lot of guys stood out. I mean, I think we saw mostly just the AHL guys and guys that had a season under their belt kind of take the reins there, and that's what you want. I'd be a little concerned, especially with the Canes not drafting until I think it was 42, where like if any of their picks kind of outperform the AHL guys, I'd be a little concerned, just. But like Charles Alexis Legault was, I think, really good, and we've seen that kind of carry into camp. And then same with Bradley Nadeau, and then even Dominic Badinka, I think, had a really impressive showing. Just given he wasn't, he was good last year, I think, in spurts, but I think consistently we saw a lot more from him.
Yeah. Well, Nadeau, he scored in his first two games, so we know what Bradley can do, and he was firing the puck, and he had lots of room out there because, of course, players were lesser players in some cases, so it gave him the room to do what he does. Charles Alexis Legault, Cam Abbott was so impressed with Charles Alexis Legault. He said he's just so committed to the process of getting better. He's a great young man to work with. He's just looking to do everything he can to keep getting better. I think, again, solid words for Legault. Obviously, Nadeau can score. Ladies, thoughts? Erin?
Sorry, I didn't know which one of us you wanted there first.
No, go ahead.
I think that the thing about Nadeau that is so impressive to me is just that release. It's just incredible how quickly he can get that puck off his stick and then, towards the net, if not in the net, and that's the kind of thing that I feel like the Canes don't have an elite shooter on the team. They have some very good shooters on the team, but they don't have somebody, being that I'm also a Habs fan, I get to watch Cole Caulfield fairly frequently. And there's just, you can tell when it's going to happen. It doesn't even, I mean, as he's entering the zone, that this one's going to go, so it's having somebody like that is that kind of a threat, I think, is critical for the Canes, not only in 5-on-5 play, but certainly on the power play. And that was really cool to see when he was playing in the prospect showcase, how often he would get those chances and get those shots off. And again, even if the goalie made a good save, even if somebody blocked it out front because they knew it was coming, it's just the fact that he can do that I think is going to be such a game changer for the Canes going forward.
Yeah, and with Nadeau, as you mentioned rightfully, they were setting him up. That was really the play. That was
Yep, it was.
Nadeau and let him one
that was their move.
Yeah, for sure. Now, Katie, you like Charles Alexis Legault. What did you see with Charles?
I just like, as Matt said, I like to see that that he took that step forward as far as his game and his development was concerned, and that he's playing inside his frame. In a lot of ways, because we're very familiar with Brent Burns. Brent Burns isn't a super physical defenseman, but he uses his size to take up space, to be in passing lanes and that sort of thing. And that's what I'm starting to see in Charles Alexis Legault, is he's starting to figure out how to use his frame, not to be a brute, but to take away time and space from players. There's still work to do, but he's getting better at not giving other players as much opportunity to dangle or do whatever they want. He's making them having to think fast on their toes and pressuring them into mistakes. And he still has room to go, but I think there's, with the dings and stuff that are currently plaguing the Avs defenseman or the Canes defenseman. Sorry, I said Burns and I got my head up.
It's okay.
A whole other train of thought. But that is what Legault is showing. And I think that with so many other puck-moving defensemen that the team has, that they really can use somebody like Legault, who is perhaps more what we would call a stay-at-home defenseman, and be that support system in order to free up the other puck-moving defenders, whether it be someone like a Gostisbehere or whomever, to do their thing and be able to be more aggressive on offense. So we'll see how it goes. I hope that the Canes D is healthy and ready to go for the beginning of the season, so that Legault can get another AHL season under his belt and really, grow into himself a little bit more. But it's encouraging that if they were to need him the way that they needed to rely on Morrow some last year, that I think he could do a passable job if needed in a pinch.
Well, and the interesting thing about Legault, of course, he was drafted well down. And he was a player that was kind of older in the draft. He had passed through a draft, and the Canes, thought, he had been a Quinnipiac. So, of course, they had seen him with Skylar Brindamore. But he's a guy that's really seen his stock rise in a hurry. There's no question. He's come in kind of out of nowhere in the last couple of seasons, and I know we all like Legault, so he's a great one. Now, two other guys I wanted to talk about, and I thought certainly showed lots in the prospect showcase. One of them, Ruslan Kazheyev. Now, this guy, I love this guy. I thought he was fantastic coming into Chicago last year. He had certainly his challenges. He played more than expected, but he's a 6'6" goaltender, and this guy has great lateral movement. He's quick, and I thought he played well. Matt, thoughts on Kazheyev?
Yeah, it's kind of funny when you look at him and you realize, he was 6'4" last year, and now he is all of 6'6". And he's making Nikita Quap, who is 6'4", by the way, look tiny.
Yes.
Like, the 6'6" might be misleading. I don't know, but he was last year. I think he was just very raw. Like,
oh yeah,
he made the jump from the Russian U20 league right to the AHL. He had no experience.
He came out of the NHL, I think, didn't he?
Yeah. So he had a lot of just kind of just young player tendencies, right? Like, he's playing against, junior players, and now he's playing against arguably some of the best competition in the world that's outside of the NHL. And so, he was erratic. Rebound control was bad. He wasn't tracking pucks well. And now you take him to this tournament, he still has that like Pyotr Kochetkov tendency of let's just see what happens. He was a lot more controlled. Rebound control was, I think, passable. I would say I would even dare to say good. I think that the best chance that I noticed from him though was his recovery between making the save and getting set to the next play.
Yeah.
Because so many times last year I'd see him make the save and then, oh no, the puck's behind me. And so and this time he's making the play, he's reacting and then moving and making the follow-up save, which he wasn't doing before. So I think that's a really big change.
Yeah, and exactly what you're saying is what Canes goaltending development coach Jason Mazzotti said. He said last year he was just so raw. He was just a 19-year-old and needed time to learn his big body. And it's gotten bigger. So we spent a lot of time on his body control and having more refined movements. He still has that athletic ability, and he's definitely playing more efficiently. And we all, hear them talk about playing quiet in goal and calm in goal. And I think, as you say, with Pyotr, he's sometimes the opposite of that. And and I guess they've been working on the same thing with Kazheyev. But I think he's a guy that has a future with the Canes. And you're right, he came over as a 19-year-old. Gosh, he hadn't even played in the KHL. So this is a guy that, like rightfully said, he moved up from Chelyabinsk in the NHL, which is like junior hockey here. So good move for him. I think he's definitely poised to get lots of action with the Wolves this year. I certainly hope so, because I like him a lot. Now, what did we think about Ryabkin? Boy, this guy, he likes to lay the body on, and he makes some moves. Katie, what are your thoughts on Ryabkin?
I just loved his energy. I think that was the most impressive thing. I can't believe he's only 18. Like, there are certain things that he does. It's like, yeah, this is a young kid, but he's just very strong. Unlike a lot of the Canes prospects, he already goes to the center of the ice a lot. He's not afraid to get in there and go to those tough areas. And if that's not a Rod Brind'Amour quality in a prospect, I don't know what is. So I'm excited to see how he develops. I'm glad it looks like they are sending him to Chicago and not back to one of the other leagues. That'll hopefully fast track him to being able to contribute first, of course, to the Wolves and then eventually someday to the Canes. So I like his edge. I like his energy, as long as they can keep it channeled. I know that's part of why he fell to where he did in the draft, was because there were some questions on his discipline, both on and off the ice. But I think that between the Wolves and the Canes, they have a good system in place that I think will help to polish off some of those edges. And I was glad to see that he was reassigned to Chicago, also because it means that he's not hurt after that.
Right.
The other night, because since you can't reassign our players that are injured, that means that he's okay. Because I think we were all kind of holding our collective breath for a while, hoping that there wasn't some sort of major injury, because he looked so good. You'd hate for someone like that to be sidelined for a significant amount of time due to injury. So I'm excited to see what he's able to do in the AHL, because you kind of already know what a lot of the other guys, Suzuki and company, are going to be there, but he's going to be one of the fun storylines to follow this season. Yeah.
Well, the one thing about they do have Nadeau now, but if you look up and down the lineup in Chicago, scoring is a bit of a challenge for them still. Now, Justin Robidas, who I think continues to look interesting when we see him, is going to be a contributor. But, you wonder about guys like Noel Gunler, and we talked a little bit about Gleb Trikazov. We wanted to see more from Gleb. Last year, of course, he tore it up. He had a hat trick in one game. He had 4 goals in the prospect showcase after just coming over from Russia. So it looked like, wow, this guy could be the real deal. Second round pick. Canes love him. He's a big player. He's got elite offensive talent, but he just hasn't been able to put it together. What did you see with him, Matt, when you were watching the prospect showcase with Gleb? That's okay.
People think I hate him, and I don't. I truly don't hate any of our prospects, and I want to say that on record. I don't hate any of them. Gleb frustrates me because I can tell that it's there. The talent's there.
Yeah.
It's a lot like a Dominic Bach type, where like you've got all this talent,
Man.
but I don't think you know how to use it. You know, and with Gleb, I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt because he missed most of last year.
He did.
And I believe he was coming back from a really bad leg injury, and that's hard to come back from, especially
Oh yeah.
Living overseas in general, whether it's Russia or whether it's, another European country, like you have less access to the Canes probably than some of the North American guys do.
Yeah.
And so, training wise, he did look a little slow at the start. I felt like gradually he got back to his game. He was forechecking better. Riyadh can set him up with a great scoring chance that, unfortunately, I think either got blocked or saved. It was a little while ago, so I don't remember now, but he also started getting to the middle a little bit. He's a winger, so he won't have to, but I think Carolina really wants him to kind of use the big frame that he has. I mean, he's definitely over 6 feet tall, and I think that, if he can kind of get back to being the skill, slightly powerful winger that he is, I think he'll have a good year.
Yeah, I think so. Erin, thoughts on some of these players at the prospect showcase? Any other folks jump out at you?
Is it Nystrom or Nystrom?
Oh, Joel Nystrom. Yes.
Nystrom, yeah.
Yeah.
But I was interested because you had highlighted him beforehand. So, I thought he had a pretty solid group of games there too. Not flashy. He doesn't strike me as a flashy player, but of course I haven't watched a lot of the prospects, so I don't know that that's accurate or not. But I liked his game. I thought he was quietly good.
Yeah, and I think that's true. I mean, that's exactly the way that I looked at Nystrom. Not a big player, but very smart, sees the ice well, doesn't make a lot of mistakes. You almost don't notice him at times.
But it's in a good way.
Yeah, and he's a little older too, kind of like Nikishin. He's 23 years old. He's a right-handed defenseman. That's great. He's played lots with Farjestad in the SHL in Sweden. So he's had lots of pro time. And I think he's going to be a solid player for the Wolves. And, we saw a little bit of what he could do in training camp as well. And I think that was, again, the team being very comfortable with him, giving him lots of ice time. Gosh, he played, I think, 22 minutes one game. So he was among the top ice guys for them. And again, just a solid player, quietly goes about his business and gets it done. So I like Nystrom a lot. The other guy, and you mentioned him too, I think a lot as well, Matt, was, and we'll finish up with Dominic Badinka. What can we say about Badinka? Matt?
Other than the fact that he looks like he's from Stranger Things.
Yeah.
So Badinka had a tough year last year. He was playing in his draft year. He was playing a little bit in the Swedish league, and he didn't really see much of an increased role last year with his team. So he's getting kind of low minutes, and that's hard to develop in, right? You're not getting favorable matchups. You're really not getting any power play or penalty kill time. You're just kind of there. And so, he understandably didn't have that great of a year. And so looking at him, the skating stood out immediately. Like, he's one of the smoothest skating defensemen that the Canes have right now. Offensively, I thought there was a lot more that he showed. He crashed the net, should have scored in the first game. I maintain that. That was a very bad call to not allow that goal. And then did score on the exact same play the next game. So he redeemed himself there. And then defensively, I think, he's fairly physical. I would say pretty but compete and physicality are different.
Yeah.
So he can have average physicality and still above average compete.
Yeah.
He'll always go win a board battle. His positioning's really solid. Like, he's going to need to learn how to, gap up a little better. I thought that sometimes, he was a little hesitant. Do I go for the hit, or do I, try and make a play with my stick and, get some separation between myself and the puck because there's another guy crashing down, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that sort of defensive IQ is there. He just needs to continue, and the way he's going to do that is getting reps. So really encouraging stuff, though.
Yeah, and again, he's in Chicago, so I think with these younger guys, and they're bringing them over young, like they did last year with Gleb and with Kazheyev, and they're doing the same thing again, bringing a guy like Badinka over as he's very young as well. Katie, what was your thoughts on Felix Ungerstorm? We talked a lot about him getting ready for this and saying, is he for real, or where's he going to go?
Well, I definitely think he needs to be back in the AHL. He's not ready for the NHL, but it's good to see him on wing. I think that the center experiment is over. It's obvious that that's not going to be his cup of tea, and he needs to go back to focusing on being the best winger that he can. He's blocked in so many different ways to getting to the Canes this year for sure. And we'll have to see from here on out. But I do hope that I think that he looked better because of being on the wing. He made some nice passes and some good reads and that sort of thing. But he's not quite there yet. But I think it could be a different story after another season with the Wolves, where he's able to just breathe and be able to be a winger and focus on being the best version of himself that he possibly can. And I think that's all we can ask of him at this point.
Erin? Felix?
I would agree with that. Yeah. I think that to me, he's one of those players that people forget just how young he still is. For his draft year. He was the youngest player in his draft year, and he almost was too young to be drafted in that year. So like by one day or something, So people get this sense of, well, he's been around for a while. How come he hasn't stepped forward? How come, and it's really more a case of just, literally needing to grow, literally needing to add weight and muscle. You can't do that, until you reach a certain point in terms of, how old you are and everything else. So, people were talking about some of our regular roster guys like Jackson Blake needing to add some muscle. They were kind of exaggerating a little bit. I think how much he could reasonably add in a summer, But for these guys, they need to go through the whole year bulking up and getting bigger and just getting stronger. And it's hard to do that while you're also playing, but they will put that effort in. And especially in Chicago, there's a little bit more time between games to work on some of that training. So I'm sure that that's going to be a huge focus for guys like Felix this year.
With Felix, it's going to look weird until it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
The way he plays, I think Canes fans will remember Teuvo Teravainen, right?
Right.
He's that type of player where, he's not the best skater. I wouldn't say he's got elite offensive traits, but he's super smart and he's a really good passer. And so I think those traits, once he figures out how to do all of that at a consistent pace and level, then it'll start to click and he'll be like, oh, whoa, like this kid's all of a sudden phenomenal.
Well, he's one of those classics with a very high hockey IQ, and he sees the ice extremely well. And that's back to what you're saying too, Matt, on his passing and making plays happen. He's a guy that can make some really interesting plays happen out of nothing, and that's a skill. So I think he's definitely someone we're still rooting for. It's been a bit of an up and down go for him. And I agree with you, Katie, that I think when they were testing him at center, the idea was a good one. It didn't do anything to help him develop last year. I think it slowed him down, actually, and I'm glad he's back on the wing where he can do what he kind of does best. Okay, so that's a wrap for the Prospect Showcase. Certainly some players that distinguish themselves, some others that we didn't see much from, but it's always fun to watch these young players and see how they're developing, and we'll continue to do so, particularly with the ones that are in Chicago this year. This is going to be a great fun year with the Wolves. So what's been happening in the Canes training camp? Big news today. A number of players were dispatched to different locations. We had several that were sent back to Chicago. And I think the key names there, of course, Bradley Nadeau heading to Chicago. We'll talk a little bit about Bradley. Certainly all the guys we talked about that, showed a little bit, but certainly should get more time in Chicago. And then there were some folks on waivers, and I guess they've all cleared. So finally, the PTOs that were moved out were Oliver Shillington and Kevin Lebanc. So a lot of movement on the roster, but let's talk a little bit about what we've seen with different players. And I thought we'd kick it off with Nikolai Ehlers. So the big question, we didn't see much of Ehlers. I think we saw one game of Nikolai, but it was nice to see him kind of parading in a Canes uniform. Hey, Katie, what were your thoughts on Nikolai Ehlers in the game you saw, and what you think about the top line?
Oh, he definitely looks like a Cane. Lots of passing and no scoring. Somebody's got to get a hold of that top line and say, third time you touch the puck, you've got to put it on net, because otherwise that top line's not going to score. Now, granted, they were together for a game, and I'd be surprised if they were even going 50-60% in that game. It will be much more telling once we get them in a proper game. But there were some really good signs there, some creative plays and some opportunities that, even though that line didn't score, they were really dangerous on the time that they were on the ice. So I'm excited to see what he can do, but I'm going to temper my expectations until I see that perhaps there's a little bit more of a elevated game plan for that line than there has been in the past, because otherwise my cynical side is going to come forward and say, new face, same system, same result. But I'm going to try and maintain that hopeful can-do attitude and trust that maybe this will be the year now that Jarvis is supposedly actually going to get top-line minutes from the start. Maybe that'll help. So, but we'll see how it goes. It's a good start, but plenty more hockey still to play to shake that one out.
Matt, how do you feel about that line as a top line on your hockey club?
You put him on the spot there.
I'm not the only one.
It's certainly, I think, one of the better top lines the Canes have had.
Yes.
Be that as it may, you still lack the superstar.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong. Ehlers was the top free agent available any way you look at it once Marner got signed by Vegas. And
what a surprise.
Once Marner, definitely not tampering, signed with Vegas.
No. Sure.
I think Ehlers became the top dog, and credit to the Hurricanes, they got him. And chances are he's going to be a top line player for the Hurricanes. I mean, he should get the minutes that he didn't get in Winnipeg, and he was great. Seth Jarvis is great. He's probably a 1A or a 1B on a really good team.
Yes.
And then Sebastian Aho is mostly a first-line center. I don't know if skill-wise he gets up there, but he makes up for it in a lot of other ways. But as a top line, I think it's great. Carolina still has the depth, but they're still missing that one wow factor guy, right? And I think Katie mentioned it earlier, a lot of all passing, no scoring. They don't have that, guy that we can rely on for 30, 40 goals consistently.
Well, that has been the beck and call of our group for months. For sure. We've certainly not been happy with that. And I know Katie and Erin have had lots to say about that. The challenge the Canes have, and they're going to have it repeatedly, and it's going to be part of another discussion we get into, has been this whole center ice discussion. We feel like Aho he's kind of a 1B or 1C. He's not kind of a purist top centerman. And and he's asked to do a lot. And of course, he does a lot very heavy defensive work, penalty killing, and so on, which also kind of affects his overall offensive game. But I feel like it's a solid line, but they're going to need a lot of help elsewhere. And I think as we get into the second line, it gets kind of interesting because, as it says right now, we see a line that looks like Andrei Svechnikov, Logan Stankoven, and of course Jackson Blake. Now Blake, it's interesting. I thought he looked particularly strong. Erin, what are your thoughts on Jackson Blake so far in camp?
I'm surprised they haven't played him more, to be honest, because he's had games, but he hasn't been, like sometimes the younger guys are there, pretty much every game, and so we have seen him, but we haven't seen him as much as I think I expected to see him, given, the new contract and his age and everything else. I thought that they would have him out there more. I like Jackson Blake. The only thing that frustrates me a little bit with him is that, he is the guy who's willing to drive the middle. He is the guy who's willing to put the puck on net. But he doesn't have a very good shot, and there's a lot of lack of finishing. So I feel like he needs to improve some of that to be that real threat on that second line, But given that he's there, if they start using him as a decoy a little bit more too to set Svechnikov up, because we know what Svech can do with the puck. So I feel like, and I really like the one game, and I know Katie did too, where they played Svech on his right wing. I think that would be a great thing to do. Play both of those guys on their off wing, put Blake on the left and Svech on the right. And then I think you'll have a lot more of a possibility of turning the line into a real threat offensively, because right now I feel like, just like with the first line, I look at that line and I say, well, where's the threat coming from? And certainly Stankoven's going to be a big part of that. But as he adjusts to the defensive responsibilities, I think it's realistic to tone down our, maybe when we were putting out line, projections of how much they were all going to get point wise. I don't know that you can keep Stankoven's point projection as high if he's playing the whole year at center and it's his first year playing at center. Now, certainly he'll pick it up on the power play. That's not a problem. But I don't know that he's going to get as much at 5-on-5 if he's the guy in the middle trying to fall back and help the defense whenever they need it, which is a really big part of how they do things in Carolina. So we'll see. I mean, it's going to be an interesting thing to see how that line comes together and what they do with it. But I want them to be, like Katie has talked about with, in comparing them to the Avs and things like that. We need one line that's a consistent offensive threat. Ideally, you need two. And I want them to make that line a threat. So my conclusion on Jackson Blake is just, I want them to do whatever it takes to get him to the areas where he can score, because he can. He's certainly smart enough that he sees the ice well. He's got the high hockey IQ. He's disruptive in terms of how he plays, how he gets beyond, other players and the way he can, deke around guys and so on. He's not a player you can keep your eye off of, and that opens up all kinds of time and space for the other two. But they need to figure out how to make that all come together, because I felt like when we did see that line, I think in one of the games, or maybe not Svechnikov, I don't think he was with them, but we saw Blake with Stankoven, and I wanted to see more. I wanted to see more between the two of them to get both of them scoring, really.
Yeah, Matt.
Somebody, and I do not remember who this was. They once said that the Hurricanes play a system that's like getting swarmed by bees. Mm-hmm. And that is what I envision that line being, where, maybe they don't have to consistently get to the, maybe they don't have to consistently get to the middle. All it takes is one turnover. Jackson Blake was one of the best players the Canes had at creating turnovers last year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Logan Stankoven, despite being a generous 5'9", is one of the best players at getting to the middle of the ice consistently.
Yeah.
His first goal with the Canes was a deflection on a 6'4" defenseman.
Yeah.
And he just outmuscled the dude for position, and that's what he does. And so, if it gives Svechnikov the option to get a little bit more space, because Stankoven's going to draw a little bit of pressure, or Blake's going to draw another guy. And if Svechnikov has room to work, we've all seen what he can do with the puck. So it's not the best version of the Hurricanes second line for sure. I mean, a second line or even first line center would probably be preferred, but for right now, I think it's the Canes' best second line.
Yeah. So I think it sounds to me like we're kind of zeroing in on Stankoven taking that spot and pushing Kotkaniemi down to the fourth line. You know, Kotkaniemi, I think, has looked very good in the preseason. I think he looks sharp. He looks a little bit different to me this year. I don't know what it is. I said this in the last podcast that he seems to have this kind of air about him that he looks like more of a veteran player that kind of knows what he's supposed to do out there, and is looking a lot crisper. And of course, he scored some goals as well. Now, Andrei Svechnikov, he's always the enigma. He made a couple of tremendous plays with Bradley Nadeau. Those guys seem to have a huge chemistry. And I thought, boy, I'd love to see those guys on the line, and we'll figure out Jackson Blake later. But I guess that's not going to be the case. But in any case, I thought Svechnikov, and you said rightfully, Katie, that he seemed comfortable on that right side, and he made some nice plays. What were your thoughts on Andrei so far?
Yeah, I really like him on the right. Part of the reason that Mikko Rantanen is such a dangerous power forward is because he is a left shot who plays on the right side. And I've always thought that Svech had that similar potential. I mean, not to the level of Rantanen, but he has so many skill sets that would suit him. But his shot is stronger from that offside area, especially around the face-off dot. And it just doesn't get utilized enough. And I think some of that is Andrei's fault because he sees himself first and foremost as a playmaker, not a sniper. But then some of that is also the system and the coaching fault, and that for some reason they have seemed bound and determined that you have to have the left shot guy playing left wing and the right shot guy playing right wing. And there's no imagination or creativity in using your players and putting them in positions to best take advantage of their skill set. And that also comes with coaching too. It's just, Andrei, go out there, don't make a defensive mistake, and
and don't take any penalties.
Create stuff. Don't take I don't want that. But he needs to be more of a shooter. He's got a good shot, and I do not understand for the life of me why that's not being coached into him, because if Stankoven and Blake are his line mates, he has to be the shooter. It's like the top line. Aho needs to shoot more. If Ehlers and Jarvis are your wingers, you need to shoot more. Svech, you need to shoot more. We need to shoot to score, not just shoot for low Corsi percentages that makes it look like the Canes are producing a lot when in fact they're just stat padding the other goaltenders' numbers.
Making a career backup look like Martin Brodeur.
Yeah. So
we'll to your point, Svech played right wing in junior.
Oh, he did. Okay.
He was drafted.
And that's common in Russia, as you know. That's very common. That would have been in Barrie. Was that in Barrie with the Barrie Colts? I guess he would have played right wing.
Yeah, and the year before in Muskegon as well.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, he played in the USHL as well. Yeah. Well, I think that line. A lot of this is going to depend on Stankoven, and we're early days on this. He's an interesting player at center. He seems to be solid in the face-off dot. He's obviously very elusive, which is great for a small player. I was thinking, I wish we had Brent Burns back, because Stankoven is one of the best deflectors in the game. Brent just fired like crazy, right? And Snake, could be in front pulling those deflections. I'm just kind of kidding, but he's a guy that, according to certainly Trip Tracy, had some very positive things about his ability as a kind of a Joe Pavelski, clone in some ways in terms of his ability to deflect pucks. And he's shown that very quickly with the Canes. And I think that's something we have struggled. We've not had that. We've had at different times our defensive core has been firing like crazy. And the goalie would save them or whatever. Nobody could get their stick on it. So he might add a new dimension, and that could be great if he can do so.
Who was really good at that?
The final thing I'll say, sorry, Matt, you got something on that?
I said, who was really good at that was Vincent Trocheck.
Oh, Vincent Trocheck, Vinny. Yeah, I've lamented the loss of Vinny for years, so that's okay. Yeah, anyway. And, Jackson Blake, again, I think he's showing that he's much more confident, of course, this year. Last year, he had to fight his way onto the team against a lot of odds, and he's showing some offensive capability with his year last year. He finished the year very strong, as we know. And I expect he'll do well again this year. Chuck Tracy said he was thinking he was going to get 50 points this year. So that's a stretch. But we'll see. So lots of fun there. The other person I wanted to talk to that's kind of lost in all of this is Taylor Hall. He's moving to the fourth line. Not much to say about Taylor.
Well, Adam Gold keeps calling that line the third scoring line.
Okay.
And I think it's because of Hall's presence on that line that they don't want to label it a fourth line, because Taylor Hall, most people would say, why on earth would you put Taylor Hall on your fourth line? So they're avoiding. I mean, we don't number the lines, and now we're morphing into our lines just have this esoteric reality. They don't really, you don't compare them to other teams, but really and truly that's not wrong if they use the line that way. I'm going to wait and see, because I'm always skeptical about, there's the perception and then there's the reality. If that line is getting 9 or 10 minutes at 5-on-5 and that's basically it, except for Taylor Hall, who is going to be on one of the power play units, then it's a fourth line. You can call it whatever you want to, but it's still a fourth line. Now, is it the typical grinding, heavy guys, Giovanni Smith fourth line? No, sorry, Katie had to do that. It's never going to be that kind of fourth line with those players on it. You've got one guy in Eric Robinson who's really maybe could be that kind of player, but the other two really aren't. So it'll be interesting to see, because the joke for the Canes fans all this time has been that the Canes don't have anything. They have a first line, and then they have 3 third lines. That's what we've always said. Yeah. So I think that they're trying to get a second line going with the Stankoven at center, and we'll see if that sticks or not. It probably will, but it's early days to be 100% certain. But the question is going to be: are we going to now have 2 third lines? Where we actually do have one that's job is to go out there and score, and one that's job is to go out there and defend. Okay. And then how do you split the ice between them? Because we know, left to his own devices, Rod would be playing Jordan Staal 20 minutes a night. But if that could still happen, which we know, even Jordan doesn't want that anymore. So, but yeah, it's just going to come down to, will they use that line like an auxiliary scoring line for Taylor Hall's sake, because he's obviously going to be more suited to that kind of thing. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah, and I mean, Kotkaniemi and Robinson played very well together last year with Marty Necas. So they've got chemistry, and I think Robinson has looked sharp. He's ready to go, and he's got that 4-year deal under his belt, so he's a happy camper. And I think he's a guy that has more to give as well. Boy, if he ever got a touch, he'd be dangerous, because he gets so many great chances. It's hard to believe how many he gets. But yeah, I think it's a great, whatever line number you want to call it. And I'd like to see that Staal line. I'd like to see their minutes come down. And I think this line allows them to do that. And we talked a lot about the potential of a guy like Jesperi Kotkaniemi actually being the heir apparent to Jordan. And I think that's something that he's killing penalties now. He's getting more ice time in defensive situations, and his face-off work is excellent, and he's being trusted in a lot of those cases. So I think that's a real potential. And I think, assuming the Stankoven opportunity continues as it has at center, I think it would be great for Jesperi Kotkaniemi as well. And they're going to get great matchups. Goodness gracious. They're going to be up against, the fourth line and third pairing. So it's they should feast on that. So that could be an opportunity for the Canes. Hey, wrapping up the forward side, 2 things I wanted to touch on. Bradley Nadeau, we talked about him in the prospect showcase. I think he did everything but make the team. Matt?
Yeah, I said today he's a victim of the numbers game. Like, if Carolina wasn't as deep as they were, 100% he's making the team. Mm-hmm. If this were the 2013 Hurricanes, he would already have a $7 million extension, and he would be crowned the savior of the franchise. But this is the 2025 Carolina Hurricanes where we have to put Taylor Hall on our fourth line.
Yeah.
So, and I think Rod said it perfectly today. Like, if we had a spot where he could be getting that top six ice time, then he'd be up here. But the way the Canes want their bottom six to roll, and because, I mean, the Kotkaniemi line to an extent is going to be a two-way line. It's not going to just drive offense. It's not going to just be defensive, right?
Yeah.
So he's much better suited getting top 6 minutes until the logjam clears up, hopefully by a trade for a bona fide top line forward.
Erin?
I think that's pretty much covering it. It's just, I was thinking about it myself. I kept, Katie had actually posted something interesting on X about, how would you how would you arrange lines if you brought in Nadeau, who sits and what happens, and people got kind of creative with it, but it was frustrating because you really couldn't make a good case for putting him anywhere else. I've had on my side, I've had some comments from people that are saying things like, someone said that Carrier is trash and they should just get rid of him and put Nadeau there, like that would be a good thing for Nadeau. You don't want to put Bradley Nadeau next to Jordan Staal and Murnick. That would be I mean, we don't want that, right? You want him to play 16, 17, 18 minutes a game. You want him to continue to grow that offensive confidence, and you also want him to round out his defensive game without the spotlight of the national team on you. He's in a better position where is with the Wolves right now. And even though you might say, well, Jackson Blake proved that he belonged on the team and they made room for him, so why can't they? Well, it's a different team this year than last year, too. People are forgetting just how in flux things were right up to the last minute with the signings and things last year as they were bringing players in to replace the people they did not re-sign. So there were openings, there were spots, there were players that had never played a single game. Well, now those players all have a year under their belt with the Canes, and the Canes like what they have from them. So they're not going to sit them on the bench and put them in the press box just so that Bradley Nadeau can come and then play like maybe 12 minutes, because that doesn't help anybody.
Nadeau on the fourth line would not have made sense, but there is still a part of me. He had such good chemistry with Svechnikov. I mean, it was phenomenal. And if Svech isn't going to be the shooter, he needs someone who will be his shooter. And Nadeau profiles perfectly in that position. So
absolutely,
that is a little bit of the frustration. And another thing that I posted today is, and it was kind of tongue in cheek, but I had reason to do it, is Bradley Nadeau the next Martin Necas, in the sense that does he have just not quite enough of the defensive game that Rod demands from his players, that he doesn't completely get the ice opened up for him and the opportunities that, say, a Jackson Blake, who has a more well-rounded 200-foot game, but not the scoring talent that Nadeau has? Is that part of what might at least slow Nadeau down in making progress through the Canes system? If not, I don't want to see him get frustrated and end up with a similar outcome that Necas did, where he had to move on from the team because he didn't get those opportunities to be a scorer first and then work on the defensive game as it goes along. So, we'll see. I understand why he's in Chicago. Better for him to get the 19 minutes there. But there really is a potential for something special, and I hope it doesn't go by the wayside because they opted to go with the more experienced hands first over his unique skill set that nobody else on the Canes has.
Well, and I think the reality is that I don't know how much more he can, I guess, hone his craft in Chicago. Yes, he has a little bit of work to do defensively, but he plays a heavy game now. I've really been impressed with the way he's used his body now. He's getting in there. He's hitting people. He's doing a lot. And he's just so darn dangerous. And he usually gets the puck moving offensively for them so much that, he's an exceptional offensive talent. There's no question about it. And, they're going to have to find a place for him. And maybe this is the unfortunate thing, is probably going to come when injury happens.
Mm-hmm.
One of those top 6 guys is going down, and he's going to come up. And boy, oh boy, he's going to stay because he's just too darn good. And I think he's demonstrated that in the showcase, and he's demonstrated it with the Canes. He's been one of their better players almost every night. So I don't think there's any question about Nadeau. And I'm disappointed because, like you, Katie, I was just thinking, man, having a guy on that right side that can whale away and shoot the puck the way he does. He scored the other night a goal. It was just in and out so fast that it was ridiculous. And that's just the shot he's got, and his offensive kind of acumen. It's phenomenal. So lots of fun there. Wild card that I talk a lot about, we'll finish with this on the forward side very quickly, is Skylar Brind'Amour. Gosh, he had 3 solid games for them. He was, one game 64.7, and in the faceoff dot, he was over 54 on the other 2 nights. He was solid on the PK. He was defensively responsible and made some offensive plays. This guy, to me, is becoming a kind of a relevant player. And I think he may get a call-up to the Canes at some point if they need that type of player, a defensive center that can chip in a little bit, filling in for other players. I think he'd be a good call-up. Thoughts, Matt?
Yeah, he kind of fits the, we need a guy that can come in and not be expected to put up a ton of points, right? I mean, That's not his game. I think his game is very similar to that of his dad's, where he's really good in the face-off circle. He'll provide some solid defensive work, and then he'll crash in the middle of the ice and be a general pest in the offensive zone. And I think that's, for a guy that you're calling up at a pinch, absolutely. I think, again, if there's an injury in the bottom 6, Carolina explores calling up a Skylar Brind'Amour as opposed to a guy like Bradley Nadeau.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, Erin's got something. Okay.
Well, I was going to say that, we have to remember that Tyson Jost exists. And I think that of the call-ups, if you're going to have a call-up for a center that goes down, I think Jost, because he has played with the team and he's been, pretty impactful in his way. He's not a guy you're going to look at to, swoop in and save the day, but to come in and play in either of the bottom 6 center positions, he can certainly handle that role. We've seen him do it. So I would say if there's an injury call up for that kind of a situation, you're probably looking at Jost before Skylar Brind'Amour. It would depend, of course, on if both of them are healthy, because that's also a consideration. But the other thing with Skylar, this has just made me laugh a little bit because, people talk about being disappointed or whatever about some of how the NHL players do in the showcase. I mean, in the training camp, the preseason games. We all know that the NHLers are not going 100%. We all know that the primary reason they're in the games is to shake off some rust and get going. And that is why in the game the other night when Jordan Stahl's line came in and played, Jordan Stahl's line played a little less than, I think, 14 minutes total ice time, and that was including on the PK. And Skylar Brind'Amour played 19 minutes and 40 seconds. He led all forwards. So that was a fun thing for him to get to be the ice time leader for a preseason game. But it's just a reminder, too, I think, that people get a little bit ahead of themselves in trying to think, well, we should be seeing more from this guy. We should have seen more from Aho and Ehlers. We should have seen more. They're not going 100%. They're shaking off rust and getting ready for the real deal. And that's the kind of thing you look at. But it's also a great opportunity for somebody like Skylar to come in and get those minutes in a big game setting, because he's not going to get those all the time. So, and he did well. He handled himself well in that game.
I think he did. And again, he's there. He gives them more depth. I don't think he hurts the team. I don't think he would hurt the team at all. He continues to grow his game. And, of course, under the tutelage of his dad, he's, defensively, he's right there. Let's round out the forwards. And somebody that I know Katie doesn't want to talk about, but I'll have to mention him, and that would be Givani Smith. Let me tell you what Rod Brind'Amour said today about Givani Smith. He said he's a guy trying to make a squad and showing what he can do. In the 4 games that he's played, he's done a pretty good job. There's no reason not to keep him around and give him another look. So, Giovanni Smith, hockey forecaster said this about Smith: the big winger will stand up for his teammates. We knew that, but he is also improving his skating and ability to make plays. And that was something I said on X the other day. I said I was really surprised because he's actually making some things happen out there. He has not been a liability. He's led the team in hits, I think, 3 games. He had 7 hits twice. So he's all over the ice. So, Katie, are you a Giovanni Smith believer?
No, he has done nothing to change my opinion because he is a good AHL caliber player, and that's who he's been going against in this preseason is other mostly AHL caliber lineups. He is just a touch too slow and just has a touch not enough puck skill that he gets caught. Right. I watched this guy play for the Avs for 7 games. He was part of the trade that brought them Mackenzie Blackwood from San Jose. Mm-hmm. And the 7 games that he was given, like the Avs were desperate for bodies at that point. They were so injured. They put Giovanni Smith in, and every time he was on the ice, it was like, oh no, what's he doing? Why is he there? What's going? It was just... It was a mess. Every single time he was on the ice, it was a mess. And he was either taking an ill-advised penalty or getting caught behind the rush, not being able to get back on odd man rushes the other way, just out of position, not right. He is not what the Canes need, especially for the type of defensive demands that Rod Brind'Amour has for his team. There's no place. We have so many wingers. And I know people talk about, well, if we're facing off against the Capitals and Wilson or the Rangers and Rempe, and it's not worth everything else that he gives up on a line to have him in there to punch somebody. It just makes no sense. He seems like a perfectly nice guy, but I just had such a problem with him on the Avs, and it's going to be even bigger at the Canes because of the way that the Canes play. So, if you want to put him in Chicago, fine. If you want to put him on a 2-way, fine. But the Canes are just so replete in talent on wing. Yeah. I don't see where Smith makes them any better. I just don't.
Okay, I think we've got the message. Okay, so that's the forward crowd. I wanted to spend just a couple of minutes on the D, and I wanted to start with Alex Nikishin. Matt, I know you've got some thoughts about Alex. Why don't you kick it off?
All right. I want to say, again, people have to remember, this is the first time he's played against NHL competition.
Right.
Like, he has not. This is his first NHL training camp too. Like, I could tell in some of the practices, I see his face, and he'd be like, "Whoa! Like, this is a different beast." Yeah. And I was like, "Yeah, you kind of lost the coaching lottery for like easy training camps. Like, this is probably the hardest training camp around the league." Now that John Tortorella is not really doing his thing. With Nikishin, the foot speed's always been a bit of an issue. Like, it hasn't been a liability. I think right now there's a lot going on in his head because he's trying to learn the language. He's trying to understand what's being asked of him, and he's trying to do all of that at an NHL pace.
Yes.
So the skating's going to be a little wonky for a little while. But as we saw last night against Florida, sometimes he just does this thing where, as a 6'4" defenseman, he makes a forward look foolish and dances around him and wires a perfectly placed shot. Mm. And that's going to kind of be the Alexander Nikishin experience this year. He'll lay a huge hit. He'll give you, I'd say for now, average defensive play, and then occasionally he'll pop off offensively. But Rod put it perfectly, like, it's going to be a year or two before we really see him take off. I think this year's going to be a big adjustment for him. his English, from what people have said that have reported around the team, they say it's gotten a lot better.
It's better.
But, a lot better compared to maybe a handful of words, like where does that really lie,
Nikishin, because of the injuries to the Blue, has not been playing primarily with an NHL level partner in these preseason games. And that, I think, has a lot to do with this hesitation and this, little tentativeness here and there, because he doesn't want, on the one hand, there's the communication and the understanding. And then on the other hand, he doesn't want to drag a partner who is, a young prospect or a guy on a PTO into a situation that player doesn't have the skill to complement. So it's a lot different when you're playing with a partner who's 100% qualified to be there. And I think that we're going to see a different Alexander Nikishin, maybe not the first 10 games, maybe not the first 20 games, but, probably around the 30-game mark when he's really comfortable, settled in with a partner that he knows, even if they're not always on the same page, he kind of knows at least where the book is, and I think that's going to look really different.
Katie?
Yeah, I pretty much agree. I'm excited to see what he brings. I hope that it is a strong start so that he is given more opportunities as he is able to settle in to open up his game, because there has been a lot of chatter, not just from Canes fans, about him being at least in the conversation as far as the Calder is concerned. Yeah. And I would, while I don't know that he's likely to win it because of taking it easy to begin with, I would love to be able to see him be successful enough to at least remain in that conversation as the season progresses. And for him to be able to do that, he needs to be getting more minutes than just third pair eventually, as he gets more comfortable with the system. Even the pros that come into the Canes defensive system say it takes about 20 games to truly acclimate to the demands. And then eventually as well see him get more power play time, because that was one area I was really hoping he would be more impactful, was the power play opportunities that he had in these preseason games so far. And it doesn't look like he's there yet as far as that timing is concerned. So again, once the other pieces fall into place, maybe that is something that then will grow a little bit more naturally into his role on the team.
Yeah, I mean, I was incredibly impressed with the way he handles himself on the power play, though. He moves the puck smartly. He can go cross ice. He's very smart getting the puck in play. Like I saw him, stopping shots going out of the blue line and keeping the puck in play and so on. Here's where I am. I mean, there have been all kinds of things that folks are talking about and saying, hey, did we overestimate, what this guy's going to be? And, all kind of, falling on our sword type stuff. Here's where I am with Nikishin. The guy's coming over to a new country. He's got all new players who don't speak his language, virtually all. There's a couple that do. But, he's played, his hockey in Russia. He's played in the KHL for the last 4 or 5 years. Here's a guy that, he was comfortable with that. And he was a star. And I think it's going to take him a short period of time to get kind of used to living in Raleigh, going to that rink, being with these players. And you said it rightfully so. I think too, Katie, he hasn't been playing with, the folks that he'll normally play with. He's been playing with, Charles Alexis Legault, Oliver Shillington. I can go up and down the line. And these aren't the guys that he's going to be with. And I think he's going to come along faster than a lot of folks think. Everybody's sitting back, and Rod, he says things, tongue in cheek sometimes. It's got to take him 2 years. Forget it. This guy's going to be a factor mid-season or earlier in my book, because that's who he is. That's the individual he is. And I know I was on many discussions with Nick Bass, and we looked at, the things he was doing in Russia and how he plays. And we watched him 33 minutes or something in a playoff game, averaging 25 minutes a game over there. And yeah, it's the KHL, but he just is a player that I think is going to make a difference. So, yeah, give him a little bit of time. Put him with some players that can play. I'd love to see him with Slavin. We talked about that a lot. And let's see what happens. But I think he's going to be good. Okay.
as we've seen, like Rod Brindamore's concept of time is very different because, with injuries, like, day to day to Rod either means like the player's legally dead or he'll be back tonight.
Yeah.
So, I think when he says Nikishin will take a year or two, I really think he's trying to protect the player.
Yeah.
And not many coaches would do that.
Mm-hmm.
Not many. So, I think that's a really good thing for the coach
right?
to do.
Because their defense is deep. So they can actually put him on the third pair, which is kind of insane. But yes, he's going to go on the third pair likely with Shane Gostisbehere, it appears right now. And it looks like your man, Sean Walker, is going to move up with Jacob Slavin. So that could be a lot of fun too. Finishing up the lineup just before we have closing remarks today, Caden Primeau, Erin came from the Montreal guys. I like Primeau a lot. Trip Tracy had some really positive things to say about Primeau. He thinks he's mechanically as sound as it gets, and he's shown it in the exhibition games. He looked sharp. He looked really sharp. And again, Jason Mazzatti, interesting story from Trip the other day, saying that Jason Mazzatti 3 or 4 years ago, watching Caden in the Montreal chain, just said, this guy can play. And I suspect that's one of the reasons why the Canes have him now. But I think he's looked good. Erin?
Oh, I would agree. I think that he's he has I think we're going to need the call up if he ends up being the call up to be another calm goaltender. Yeah. I think that this is where you want Primeau to be the call up. You don't, it's too soon for Kazheyev and it's too soon for some of these others, but you don't want to go from one, to use the phrase that gets put around on Twitter, the goalie with a knife, to another, I know that's a big joke, but that is one of the nicknames that gets used for Pyotr Kochetkov from time to time, just from his aggressive nature and the fact that he will go on these strolls and leave the net, far behind and all the rest of it. So I liked his calmness. I thought Primeau is going to be that kind of guy. He's going to come in. He's not going to wow you. He's not going to, he does make some really nice saves, but he's not going to be a star caliber goaltender. Nobody expects that. But he's also not going to be the rotation of Spencer Martin and Dustin Tokarski, who really should be praised for doing as much as they could. But that was not the greatest thing for the Canes when they needed both of those guys in the lineup. So it's nice to have someone like that. And I think he'll be good for the Wolves. I'm interested to hear what you think about that, Matt. If you think how he's going to be for the Wolves?
Yeah, I think he'll be good. His AHL numbers are solid. You also have to remember, with Primeau, he's never gotten consistent NHL ice time. There was one season where he got 23 starts, and that was the 23-24 season, and he had a 9-10. That's a respectable backup. Especially, given I don't believe Montreal made the playoffs that year. So, that's a decent backup, performance. A 299. So, but slightly under 3 goals against, too. With him, he's going to be an actual true AHL stud goalie to, carry the bulk of the starts, because obviously Amir Miftakov is a giant question mark. Did not like him in the preseason, and, we didn't see Kazheyev, but, it's really Primeau's show down there. But, just with having Frederick Anderson as your goalie, you are going to need a third goalie at some point, and given how Primeau has looked, in the preseason, again, it's against mostly AHL competition, he's been good. And I think it just gives Carolina somebody who they can rely upon to give them at least average goaltending. And we've seen the Canes can win a game even when the goaltending is average, if that's...
Yep.
As we look at the roster as we see it now, closing thoughts, how do we feel about, generally what we've seen and what we might expect as the season kicks off? Katie?
I think they have a very strong roster. All of it, of course, depends on how the lines gel and the chemistry goes and the patience of Rod Brindamore to not become Rod Blendamore too quickly. And they need time to work together. They need time to develop chemistry. And if they can do that, it shouldn't be a problem for the Canes to win the Metro, and then we'll see how that all shakes down in the playoffs. But if they do come out of the gate slow, and that's very, very possible, as things happen, they might create a bit of an uphill battle for themselves and make things more interesting than it needs to be. But I mean, sounds like the Canes of the past few seasons anyway. So we're used to it at this point. But I am cautiously optimistic for this team and what they'll be able to do. And yeah, just see how the big experiments go moving forward.
Erin?
I think there's two storylines that we're going to be paying attention to this season. The first one is that as much time and attention as we pay to the forwards, I still can't get that remark of Rod's out of my head that he could put 13-year-olds up in front, as long as his defensive core is good enough and his goaltending. And that comes back to, I think the defense is really going to be the key to how the Canes do this year. Last year, it wasn't there. And, I know we've pointed some fingers here and there. But yeah, I'm not going to do that now. But they need this defensive core to come together. And the most disappointing thing, I think, about the preseason has been that they haven't been able to do that because of the injuries. But we want them to be healthy coming in. It's more important for that. So I'm excited to see how they actually look when they get to play. I'm hoping it'll be Saturday, in the final preseason game. I really do. But we'll see. The other storyline, and this is something that people are going to talk about, regardless of whether we want them to or not, really. The Canes have a huge opportunity if they position themselves well enough to go deeper in the playoffs because of the very unfortunate injury to Alexander Barkov. Yeah. This is a big thing for the Florida Panthers. And I know that the Panthers are still an incredibly solid team. They're not going to just melt away to nothing without Barkov. But there's also the potential that a couple of these other guys are very seriously overplayed over these last few years with the number of games they've played, and the Olympics on top of that adds another wrinkle to the whole picture. Depending on how the Panthers are doing, the Canes, I think, may have their best chance to come out of the Eastern Conference final and compete for a Stanley Cup this year. It's going to be a big fight all the way. We'll just have to see how it goes. But that is going to be a narrative, I think, all season that we're going to be watching.
Yeah, and to add to that, the Canes have over $10 million in cap space right now, which, we've never been in this situation going towards, a trade deadline this year unless something happens before then, which is going to allow them to shore up in whatever areas that the Canes think they need to do. Matt, I want to thank you so much for coming. What do you got as closing comments?
Yeah, it's definitely a better roster than last year. Any way you look at it, when you replace Jack Roslovic with Nikolai Ehlers, I think that's definitely an upgrade no matter how you look at it. And then you made the upgrades that you wanted to make. You got younger on the blue line, which I think is really important, just given I think we saw the blue line's age, especially in the playoffs. And you got quicker, you got tougher, and you have, I'm looking at Puckpedia right now, and it's almost $11.5 million. I don't know if that's fully accurate, but that is a chunk of change to spend on a good player or two, if they see fit. So, they're in a really good spot to not only be a good team now, but potentially be an even better team later on this year.
For sure. Hey, Matt, where can people find you?
Well, they can find me, best place to find me. I am on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. It's at Matt Somma 12. I have a Substack. It's for now called Matt's Substack because, I write about hockey, not creativity. And, you can also check out Developing Hurricanes. Nick, Canes Prospects, obviously friend of this show. He and I do a little thing together just for fun. Where, definitely, it's not the best production. We like to ramble and have our own stories, but it's a lot of fun. And hopefully soon you can check out some of my work with the Green Bay Gamblers as well in the USHL. Haven't gotten a player there yet because I just started there, but, I've been working hard.
Yeah, and I was going to mention that, of course, you've been scouting junior hockey on and off for years. You did the Coquitlam squad, of course, now Green Bay. So Good on you. And again, thanks so much for joining us, Matt. It's been great fun. For those of you who've been watching or listening, we're delighted you spent time with us today. We always enjoy the fact that you spend your time with Storm Tracker. If you like this episode, please press the like button. If you have comments or questions, put those in the comment section down below. And of course, if you'd like to be alerted of future episodes of Storm Tracker, please press the subscribe button and the bell, and you'll be alerted of future episodes as soon as they're available. Once again, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll catch up real soon right here on Storm Tracker.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like, subscribe, and tell your friends for everything with the Canes. You need Storm Tracker.